Your avoidant ex may be silent, but this silence doesn't mean they stop thinking about you. I know this not just as a therapist, but because I used to be dismissive avoidant myself. On the outside, I looked like I moved on. I would look busy, cold, hard to reach, but inside, the feelings didn't disappear. They just came later, once the silence set in. That's why in this video, I'm going to show you the hidden signs your avoidant ex is still thinking about you. We'll cover the subtle ways they keep the connection alive, the psychology behind why they act so distant, and most importantly, how to respond in a way that keeps you grounded. Stick around till the end because I also share the key shift that helped me and also helped hundreds of my clients to turn confusion, mixed signals into clarity, and finally feel secure no matter what your ex does. So what's different with avoidance? Avoidance, they internalize emotions. So for me, it's very hard to express. It took me a while to be aware of my emotions, which is a bit strange. I used to be, I'm either angry, sad, happy, and even like angry. I wouldn't necessarily be angry. And so what happens is that they would deactivate. So we have this attachment. We need to be attached to a primary attachment figure. Avoidant, they deactivate. So they don't play the need to be attached to their primary attachment figure, to their partner. And they avoid things. So in a way, you can also learn from how avoidants deal with breakup because they're very good at removing triggers. They cut ties, they get back on their islands, and they isolate themselves. Is it the right way to deal with relationship with problems? No, but, and unfortunately, maybe you don't want to hear this, they suffer less than you. It's this idea of you get loud as an anxious partner, you want to connect, you want to discuss, and they get quiet. And the more you get loud, the more quiet they are. And so what you have to understand is like this coping mechanism that's from the outside feels, it's over. Maybe what we had wasn't real. No, it's not exactly what it is. And that's also, and I will explain in a second, this idea of the timing is different. When you have an anxious attachment style, you have raw emotions. It's very strong. When you're avoidant, as you suppress things, there's a delay. So first of all, understand the difference. The situation, the feelings could be exactly the same, but their response will be different. When I help my clients, I don't help them to reignite feelings or the flame. The feelings are there, right? It's just a question of attachment clash. And it's a question of how can we, and I discussed that at the end, how can we create the right condition for them to feel safe in the relationship and also for you to feel safe in this relationship. So this idea of timing curve, and the reason those signs are very subtle with avoidance. So short term, as I said, we would numb. I would feel like, I remember after a breakup or after a difficult situation, feeling completely numb, like neutral, like Play-Doh. Sometimes my parents would say like, you're like Play-Doh. You can hit on it, it doesn't affect it. You can drop it, so you cannot affect it, right? Busy, practical. A lot of avoidance, they go back directly to work. Like they put themselves at work, they're workaholic because they control things, because there's no emotion involved. Some of the triggering points are loneliness. So it's not because you're avoidant that you like to be lonely, right? And sometimes the same way, again, you would experience that early on of, going back to bed, waking up alone in your bed, etc. For them, they wouldn't feel this right away. But at some stage, as they realize that, hold on, my life is not as enjoyable. I don't feel as fulfilled as when I was connecting with a human being. Then this is where they start to sort of think about the relationship. They would not express anything, but they would think about the relationship. And so this distress can usually block, because the thing is like it's all about coping mechanism that not healthy way of dealing with a problem. So the challenge is for them to intellectualize what happened and realize that you're not the problem. Realize that the relationship was not necessarily the problem, is how they decided to process things. And again, I will explain this in a second. What you need to understand is that it's not that they didn't care, it's that they are right now postponing this element of caring about you, caring about the relationship. So here are some few direct signs that we can qualify as low risk. Logistical. Oh yeah, have you seen my pair of sneakers because I need to go play football or whatever? Talking about a project, bumping into you in a cafe or at the gym. The gym is a big thing apparently. So these are things, okay, they're not reaching out saying, I miss you, I want you back, but they are sort of trying to be in your radar. This is positive, and I think when I work with my clients is like we start from there and then we start to build up the right platform, the right dynamic. Some indirect signs could be you're not blocked, right? There's always this idea of, remember, they have the opportunity to block you. They have the opportunity to take their things back. They have opportunity to block you on social media. They have opportunities to not to talk to you about mutual friends. Okay. And so all of those things doesn't mean that you're going to get back together. Don't get me wrong, but it means that the lines of communications are potentially open, right? So again, if it's a difficult breakup, if you betray their trust, if they lost feelings, why would they still keep those ties with you, right? As I said, avoidance, they like to cut ties. I'll go back on my island. This is why I feel safe, and therefore I don't need anyone. The world is the problem. I'm fine on my island. I'm fine. And that's why them keeping those ways to stay connected, even though it's very subtle, it's a sign that actually it's potentially the foundation, the start of something new. Because by the way, this relationship that you're trying to repair has to be different. Okay, you will never be able to have a successful, healthy, and fulfilling relationship with someone, with an avoidant partner specifically, if things remain the same. You can probably get back together, and I've seen cases, people calling me, got back together a few times, and then when you do the assessment, it's clear that nothing has changed. The dynamic is the same input delivers the same output. So it's important. Lines of communications are open, but it's about like, what can you do to change things? And again, I'll explain everything at the end. As a therapist, I like to see myself as kind of an investigator, a journalist. I look at the patterns. I look at what happened in the past, whether in your childhood, with previous relationships, in this relationship, and trying to assess, okay, what are the mechanics? The thing is, most of those patterns are unconscious. You need to assess the secure moment, whether you felt calm with them, at peace, whether you had fun, whether you feel like you were a team, whether you feel you felt regulated when you were with them, whether this relationship was mutually invested, whether you were talking about future planning. I know a lot of my clients were engaged and somehow their partner got triggered. So it's like, okay, we talked about future, we talked about babies, they disappear. Okay, so we can work with that. That's the right foundation. If you're not sure about this, and basically the big question is whether this relationship was meaningful. Was it a mutually loving relationship? Were you truly compatible? Maybe you're wasting your time. And I'm not the one to tell you, you should not get back together. You should move on. I don't know your story. You know your story better than I do. But I know a lot of people, after a breakup, they want to catch a fall in life. Because of the loss, their driver is to reduce their pain by getting back with their ex. And because of that, they don't reflect and assess the relationship for what it was. So maybe that's the case for you. Hopefully that's not. Actually, maybe that's the case for you, and you be happier knowing that it's not the right relationship. The point when I work with my clients is not about getting back together. It's about assessing is this the right relationship for you? We're going to change a few things. We're going to work on ourselves. We're going to try to be the adult in the room. But if it's not the right relationship, we would let go. So if you're not sure about this, and maybe you're confused and you want to get some clarity on that, there's an assessment, a free assessment that you can take. The link is in the description. And the idea is to basically see whether it has like a green, amber, red light of whether this is the right time to reach out, whether they are the priority is to work on yourself, on work on the communication. Have a look in the description. It's totally free. Now, we need to look at the language of the breakup. This typical, I can't do this right now. Very often, yesterday I had a call with a client and his ex was like changing jobs. Her kids were grown-ups, like going to uni. Her dad was ill, etc. There were so many things happening in her life that she thought, because she's avoidant, there's so many things in my life, I can't do relationship. And so this idea is more about capacity than feelings. I know you mean well. I have feelings. I love you. I think she said that. I love you, but I can't do that right now. So again, this is a question of, okay, this is an element outside of the relationship. It's external factor. To me, it's very easy to fix those things. You have to wait a bit, wait for them to reassess things in their life. And then this external factor, whether you can influence it or not, is something that can be repaired. The problem is, for avoidant, they have a tendency to feel, when I have a problem, I need to deal it myself. And being in a relationship will add an extra layer of problem. Whereas, like, obviously, when you have a problem, your partner is here to help, right? But avoidance, I still do that, have a hard time asking for help. So assess these external factors. Assess the speed, whether that was sudden, whether it was a long process. Very often, the easiest relationships to repair are the ones where it's very sudden, out of nowhere. The problem I have, and sometimes I can't, you can't repair the relationship, is like when it's like 10 years of resentment building up, accumulation of resentment, where you start drifting apart slowly and surely. This is very hard to correct. If it's sudden, actually, it's way faster to get back together. So look at those elements and assess, because that will give you more clue as to whether this relationship can be saved, and the subtle signs or the different things that you can assess from your social media, from the text or the lack of text that you receive from them. Now, there's something you need to understand, is this idea of danger zone. It's well described in the book attached. It's from a study from, I never know how to pronounce his name, Milkusinzer, something like that. But it's the idea that whenever you're anxious and you try to connect and you chase, this is when you trigger an avoidance, where he or she feels overwhelmed. And because he or she feels overwhelmed, he or she withdraws. What happens when they withdraw? You push, etc., etc. So the pursuit will reinforce their deactivation. So the point is, when you see distance as a threat, when they see you chasing as a threat, you have to diffuse this. The point is, okay, how can I be, because it's all about nervous system. When you're triggered, you're not thinking properly, rationally. It's your nervous system telling you, fight or flight, this is a danger. You frame it as a danger. And if you're avoidant, you pull away. If you're anxious, you chase. So the point here, especially after a breakup, especially if you have an anxious attachment style, is finding ways to self-regulate, to reframe things. That's why I think this video could help around this idea of silence is not necessarily rejection. Them being cold and distant doesn't necessarily mean that they don't care. We don't know. We can't make those assumptions. Making assumptions is very, very dangerous, because when you make assumptions based on your insecurities, you will start activating your nervous system. And this is why you can't sleep. This is why you have problem eating, focusing, etc., etc. It's because your nervous system is on alert. So that's the first element. Then what happens when you see those signs, when you start connecting with them? It needs to be low pressure, short, to the point. I know there are tons of things you want to discuss with them. I know maybe you're angry at them, maybe you're upset, maybe you're sad, maybe you're disappointed, and you want to discuss this. Maybe you want to share with them how much you love them. This is not the point. The point is to raise the level of intimacy and emotion, because if you're already super high in emotions and intimacy, they won't have the capacity to welcome, to speak your language. So avoidance, if you start with emotions, they will feel like, it's not me. They would either disappear, push back, not because they don't care, it's just because they don't feel I'm able to soothe you, to answer any of your requests or questions. So I see that as a ladder. It starts with a text. Maybe you're the one reaching out, maybe they're the one reaching out. It doesn't really matter. Then it's a call. Then it's a meetup. But the meetup is not in this, when we grab coffee together, we're going to solve our relationship. No. Working with the clients at the moment, it's been 2 months. And initially I told her, reach out to him. I know he's going to reply. He replied right away. Then they exchanged text for a week or two. I don't remember the exact timing. And then they met up. Did they solve everything? No. Now they're meeting up every weekend. And it's been, 6 weeks of them meeting up every weekend except for holidays. Anyway, have they solved the relationship problem? No. But they're having a good time. And I know that, as I told her the other day, the trajectory is the right thing. It's not a question of time. You just have to look at the dots. You continue the trend, you're going to get back together. No questions asked. Because the more, it's not that the slower, the better, but as long as you self-regulate, don't pressure the person, spend good time with him or her, you recreate this intimacy, slowly but surely. That's why if you have a tendency to be anxious, it's easier to mirror, to be following them, following their lead, because then you're not going to pressure them. Okay? And then there are ways to nudge them, to teach them. I often say you need to be the role model, the adult in the room, right? Showing them, how you reply, how you set dates, how you set expectations, etc. And gradually you start, structuring boundaries, discussing about future, etc. But initially, very slow, very gradually climbing up the ladder. The things you should not do. Hopefully you haven't done those things. If you have, well, we'll see, depends. No essays, no ultimatum, no where this is going. Again, it's totally acceptable, and I get it that you have those questions. You will get those answers eventually. The problem is that is the approach, is the how, right? If you send them a list of requests or things, you're sure it's not going to work out. The testing, the sharing emotions that I discussed, the keeping them warm, etc. It's really about matching their emotional capacity and developing that intimacy over time. Now, when you do this, it's important that you also respect your own boundaries. Because this idea of keeping them warm, accepting any form of breadcrumbs, that's not what we want. So sometimes people stay 6 months, 9 months. They receive one text every now and then, and they think like, it's not over. No, it is over, because it's not the relationship you want. It's been 9 months of you trying. It's not working. So either there's something that you do that's not appropriate, or they don't want commitment. They just want this suboptimal relationship. They just want you to be around. That's why when I work with my clients, it's always like, let's work together for 3-4 months. That's it. Because we need to be, and sometimes getting back together is more than 4 months, but in this time frame, we have certainty that it's going in the right direction. Because if it's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, I will be the one telling my clients, I don't accept that. Don't. You should not. Because that's not what you want. That's not the type of relationship you want. And so it's finding also, and that's part of reframing element, finding the strength to say, I need to let go of this relationship. I can't accept this relationship. So initially after a breakup, it's very hard to have this confidence of like, I don't want this relationship, right? So it's a process of self-regulation. It's a process of reframing things and being confident around your boundaries, around your needs. And then you assess with your partner whether those two elements will influence the relationship in the right sense. That's what I just discussed. The secure base element of regulating first. So it's about the environment, your sleep, your health, your what you eat, the journaling, the social support. So it's not only therapists, but friends, things that you do. Then it's about the signals. You need to assess the clarity, the consistency, whether you have that chemistry back. And again, it takes a bit of time to come back to what you had. My approach, it's not that it's my approach, I think it's, to me, it's the only approach, is this element of micro exposure. You test, you go back. You text, you go back. You step a little bit outside of your comfort zone, not too much, a little bit, and you iterate. If it doesn't work, you go back, you understand what happened, and then you continue. Do this for 30 days. In 30 days, that's enough time to look at a trend. The people usually have, most people have this mistake of like, oh, we had a great date. And they plot a dot here, and that defines the entire dynamic. Unfortunately, that's not enough. The same way, he took me 2 days to reply to my message. Doesn't matter. My clients, when I describe where she's meeting with her ex every weekend, at some stage, he took 1 week to reply to her message or something like that. And she stressed out a lot. I was like, no, it's fine. It's normal, because he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't want to be rejected. He doesn't know whether he can give you what you want. And so for him, it's normal that it takes time. And gradually, I think it was like textbook took him. He replied right away, then he started a conversation, then he disappeared a bit, then they met up, then he replied right away, a little bit like 1 or 2 days reply, and then now they're, I don't think they talk every day, but they see each other every weekend, and there's like ritual of doing things together. Now remember, avoidance are quiet, they are practical. Yes, they are cold. That's how they deal with problems. It's not about you, right? It's not about you, it's about how they deal with problems. The point is, this calmness, this element of pushing things away is temporary. You can't push things away. You can't push feelings away forever. And they will resurface. So if they have feelings for you, if you had something special, and if you're not sure, take the quiz, things will come back. And they will start looking at the relationship with, differently. They will start missing the relationship. When you start recovering the relationship, look at the pattern, look at the trend. Right? It's very important. Let's start with creating that secure base first. Secure base first rather than chasing. Starting with you, micro exposure, step by step. And you assess, maybe that's not the right relationship. Maybe they're not doing the work the same way you're doing the work. Because you're doing the work, right? You're watching this video, you're trying to learn about yourself. And this is amazing. You should celebrate this. And I'm grateful that you're watching those videos, because if you watch this video till the end, it means that you mean well. You want to improve as a partner. You want to have better relationships. And that's why I'm creating content online, is to help people achieve those goals. If you want to support, don't hesitate to subscribe and like this video, or share to anyone who would need to watch this video. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourself. Bye.